You are Locked On Chargers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And every day is today, being Sunday. Welcome to the Locked On Chargers Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. You can also listen wherever you find your podcast on the Locked On Chargers podcast feed. I am Pete Fox, covering sports in LA back to 2007 for ESPN LA and NBC Sports Radio. And he is Kenyon Barner, 10 years in the NFL, Oregon Duck, and 3 rings to show for it. Kenyon, this game to me started off kind of promisingly based on the fact that I think most of us thought that the Chargers were going to get waxed, with the injuries and the question mark hanging over Justin Herbert's head. But the fact that he played, I think everyone was mildly or moderately encouraged. So yeah, a good start, a good first quarter. And then from there, it all went downhill and just a near miss, like what could have been. There were so many, come on, it was just like one kind of figurative fumble after the next. I mean, there wasn't a ton of real fumbles, but figuratively. We'll get into the details here in just a second. Today's episode of the Locked On Chargers Postcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So the final score, 17-10. Chargers led 10-0. And then the Chiefs just kind of kept chipping away. They kind of, is it me, or do I feel like the Chiefs do this to everybody? They just wear them down.
They wear you down. That's exactly what they do, and that's exactly what they did in this game. This game reminded me much of what last week looked like, where started off good, very competitive, and as time went on, the defense began to wear down. The Kansas City offense began to do more, move the ball more, be able to run the ball more effectively the later into the game we got. And that's exactly what they did. This was a typical Chief win, wear you down and then kind of take advantage of you at the end of it.
Well, some of the numbers from this game, the Chiefs have now won, is it 11 consecutive games and 11 consecutive on the road against the Chargers. The Chargers have not beaten, they have not beaten the Chiefs away from Kansas City in a long time. I mean, back to the San Diego days. So that's why I busted out the old San Diego hat with some old autographs. I don't even know who these guys are, but
I was going to ask you who you got on there.
I do remember it was one guy at the time. I'm a San Diego State graduate, and the Chargers had a guy who was a special teamer who came from the San Diego State Aztecs, and I was all excited to meet him, and because not many Aztecs get to the NFL. I mean, there's a handful, but I think it was Kareem or something like that. But cool dude, and I was excited to get his autograph. And some of the other guys were like linemen, and nobody fancy, no LaDainian Tomlinson, linemen and special teamers. But we at that time, the radio station I worked for, we covered them. We did the games, played the games every weekend, so we were down there for camp.
Sproles is my guy. I might have to get something from Sproles for you.
Oh, right on, cool.
Get your autograph collection up a little bit.
Is he an Aztec dude?
No, he's not an Aztec.
Oh,
he went to Kansas State.
Oh, okay, cool. Darren Sproles, that's
a Charger nonetheless.
Yeah, that's a name we haven't heard in a while. Well, today Kelsey broke out for the Chiefs, beat AJ Foley early on, 3rd and 8 was a first down, but then a fumble and the Chargers got the ball. So it was kind of like things were going in their direction. That first quarter was just like the first drive was well balanced, a little bit more run than throw. And I thought, okay, that's what the Chargers are expected to do. That's what we want to see. And, they had a nice pass to Disley. McConkey had a nice reception and then a touchdown. So nice everything was, it was going really well. And I thought, like, is there a way that they can pull this off? Only because the Chiefs aren't expecting them to be able to. I don't know what went wrong. I mean, a lot of things did. Ultimately, as you said, they got worn down. and the Chiefs are probably a better team, in general across the board. But, as we kind of jump ahead a little bit to the late part of the game when like in the third quarter, it seemed like the Chargers were like, we're going to run the ball, right? We're going to ground and pound and all of that. And it was like, okay, that's cool. That's what we know you guys do. And it just didn't work. It wasn't going well for them. They just kept doing it. Like, to me, that's like, all right, you've tried it. Like, it's not working. The Chiefs are not allowing you to run the ball, especially up the gut. Kenyon, what the hell were they doing? Why were they trying to run it up the gut? And he's getting maybe a yard if he's lucky.
You got to get away from that. You got to try and attack the edges. Clearly, the middle of their defense, they weren't giving it. There was no breaking them. There was no bending in them. You got to attack the edges. I liked how the Chargers started the game. Very creative, getting the ball around, getting it spread around. They got away from that. They became kind of basic to me as the game went on. Whereas when we paid attention to that first drive, there was a lot of excitement, ball movement, the sweeps. There was things going on that kind of made guys look elsewhere and created some opportunities. And they got away from that. They became plain, in my opinion, as the game went on.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it didn't seem like there was a whole lot going on. I've never been a huge fan of trying to run the ball up the gut time and time again, unless you're Derrick Henry, right? Because if you beat the defensive line with a guy like Derrick Henry for 3.5, 4 quarters, by the end of the game, they start making decisions about their paycheck. That's the old joke, well, I don't know if I want to get in front of him. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Right. They start making business decisions at the end of the game. But I'm sorry. I like J.K. Dobbins and I like Gus Edwards, but they're not Derrick Henry. You just can't keep pounding it up the middle when it's clear that the defensive line of the Chiefs is playing better. And potentially, I don't know, I look at it and I go, maybe the offensive line for the Chargers was just worn out. We know that Alt was out of the game today. So they were playing with at least one fewer than their regular dudes. And I'm like, you got turn the page. Let's go to the next page or the third page or try something different. The Chiefs were doing it. It was working for them, misdirection, the fake sweep, and then the shovel pass, that kind of thing. It's interesting. We kind of expect that stuff from the Chiefs. They do it all the time. The Chargers didn't have any of that sort of misdirection, anything interesting. It was just vanilla as can be.
Yeah, I got very vanilla. Like I said, at the beginning of the game, it looked great. It looked as if we knew Herbert was hurt, so they had to get creative with the offense. But they got away from that. Not only that, bringing up the offensive line, we had 5 pre-snap penalties. And I think we had 10 total in the game, 10 or 11 penalties total in the game. Yeah. You can't win a football game, especially against the Kansas City Chiefs. Having 10, 11 penalties in a game is just not going to happen.
Yeah, there were a handful of drives that were smooth, right? But there was another handful of drives that were bumpy, awkward, ugly, uncoordinated, just not smooth. And you're right. That all comes back to the penalties and just maybe you chalk that up to the injuries. I don't know. It just seemed like that is fundamental football.
Yeah. Pre-snap that's all mental. That has nothing to do with injury. That has nothing to do with anything outside of locking in, focusing in, and executing what you need to do pre-snap. So it has nothing to do with injuries whatsoever. That's just guys having mental lapses during the game.
Here's some good news. Daniel Berry. Hey, the Chargers almost did it.
Almost did it. This isn't horse
Charger fans are like, whatever, man. We almost won. They're not upset
moral victories now. I see we're taking moral victories.
And here Patch agrees. Yes, we did. We almost won. But there is some of this. Funzi, fire Greg Roman. I wonder if he's a fire Dave Roberts guy as well.
Right. You guys are just excited about Rome early week 1. We won in week 2. So let's not start the fire train. Let's get off that train and get healthy and let the season continue to develop.
Yeah, I thought Herbert was okay. He seemed better than last week. He finished the game and he scrambled a few times and made things happen and played pretty well. So for me, this was about play calling. Yeah. So I look, I'm not in a fire Greg Roman mood, but I would say, yeah, if I'm Greg Roman right now, I'm looking for a sixer. I'm not feeling good about the way this game went down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel confident about the calls that I made. One of them we're going to get into right after the break, because it was just like, everybody was like, what the hell was that? Of course, Tony Romo is all about predicting what's going to happen. And he did that. And then the calls come, or the play call comes in after a timeout, no less, and it is garbage. So we'll get into that here in the next break. It's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. Kenyon Bonner, Pete Fox. Chargers fall. They're 2-2 now, 17-10. They almost won. They almost got
almost
it.
Did it. Almost did it.
A moral victory against the Chiefs, which is something because they're the champs. All right, we'll take a break. Come right back. All right, today's episode of the Locked On Chargers postcast brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is one of my favorite apps for buying tickets. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Dodgers playoff games right around the corner, a week from yesterday, so 6 days away. When I clicked on Game Time, right at the top, one of their hot items, Dodger tickets, I saw them listed for under $100, $96 to go to a playoff game, which is again on Saturday. That's a deal right there. And trust me, if you are interested in going to Dodger playoff games, it's not going to get cheaper as the days go by. So I went and took my 90. My mom is 97, huge baseball fan. She was 95, I think, when we took her a couple of years ago. Went to the first game. It was the only game the Dodgers won that year in the postseason, and definitely cheaper on the first game than it was on the second, and so on. But they didn't last very long that year. I believe that was the year they lost to the Padres. Last year they lost to the Diamondbacks. So this year's going to be better. So get in there, get those tickets early. Game Time filters out the fluff, show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. They also have seat views. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, which is, for me, a huge benefit. Large, lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. And Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL, $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right. Locked On Chargers postcast. Chargers fall in this one 17-10. Herbert 16-27, 179 yards, 1 touchdown. Patrick Mahomes, thought they did a pretty good job on him, but he's Mahomes, 19 of 29, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's like if you can win the turnover battle against the Chiefs and you don't win the game, it's like it feels like something is wrong, something is amiss. That is a fumble right there. But fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, like they went in this drive at the end of the third, into the fourth, 4th and 1, 3-yard line, right out of a timeout.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up.
And they run a drop back pass play where Herbert was like scrambling with a lineman on his back. And, it's like it was like threw it out of the back of the end zone. That was just an atrocious call. Romo said it. But here's the good news. The Chargers almost won. And on the next series, they forced a punt. So it didn't turn into any points, but they missed a huge opportunity to grab a lead there. Right. I don't know. What's your call there? Do you, for me, I don't go for the field goal. I think they need the touchdown there.
Absolutely.
But you got,
they clearly did.
Yeah. I would run a running play. Again, I'm not a huge fan of up the gut running plays. I would have tried to get something around the edge, maybe a keeper, something like that. I don't know if it's worth testing Herbert there because it could aggravate the injury. Right. So somehow something creative, few pages deep in the playbook, get someone the ball with speed that can get around the edge. That would have been a good call to me. What they did was a waste of a play and a wasted opportunity.
It was exactly that. It put me right back in the mind frame and the mindset of Seattle versus New England in the Super Bowl, where you have Marshawn Lynch, you throw the ball. It, I will never understand. I didn't understand it today. I didn't understand it then. In that situation, you're right there. You have to run the ball. Your quarterback
Yeah.
isn't healthy, so there's no possibility of him scrambling and making something happen. He doesn't have the ankle, the legs to do it. So you have to put
Yeah.
the ball in either JK hands or you have to give the ball to Gus. And at that point in time, your offensive line, they listen, you gotta drop your sack. You gotta go get me a yard. You have to, without a shadow of a doubt. So that play call absolutely was kind of mind-boggling, as my brother would say. It's a mind-boggling decision that you just made right there. I didn't understand that. I didn't like it. So no, we got to do better than that. That was definitely
Yeah.
a missed opportunity.
That's
1000%.
one where you go, what the F was that?
What are we doing? What are we
Yeah.
doing? Why? You just look.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
Well, look,
Why
how
do
about this? We just spent the better part of 5 minutes discussing the fact that the Chargers could not run the ball against the Chiefs
And then we're saying
defense.
run the ball.
Yeah, now we're saying you should have run the ball there. So maybe could you imagine trying to say that to Harbaugh or Roman? Like, hey, you guys just spent 5 minutes talking about the fact you couldn't run the ball. Now you're asking, why didn't I run the ball? Well, but
Yeah.
again, what I said was like up the gut. And that's where I felt like the Chargers had problems. I feel like JK could get a little bit of something happening if he got to the outside, but again,
Yeah.
maybe a play action, even that would have been better, right? Because
But we didn't run the ball well enough. We didn't run the ball well enough for play
Yeah.
action to even have an effect.
True. That's a great point.
So
Yeah,
it's
no,
like,
you're right.
you gotta be able to run the ball in order for play action to work the way that it needs to work, and they did. And the run game was ineffective on today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. When they're trying to run the ball and it's completely ineffective and not working, you can't even go to the play action at all, right? There's no point in that. And if you stop running the ball, they're going to key in on your receivers and double team whoever you're throwing the ball to, right?
Yeah, we came into this game a wounded dog, with Herbert being hurt. So what makes Herbert special is not only his ability to pass, but his ability to use his legs when needed. So if I am running play action, I'm not worried about Herbert breaking out the pocket and getting a first down. I'm not worried about that. But if I can't run the ball like we didn't do today, it's good for nothing. There's no point. So you have to continue to try and run the ball in case I want to call something play action later on in the game. It's not like I've thrown 10, 15 passes in a row and then I try and run a play action. You have to try and keep the defense off balance. You want the run game to be more effective. It just wasn't today.
Yeah, some of the stuff I thought was working for them was like the slant routes. I don't know about you, but as a kid, as a youngster, growing up in Southern California, we got a face full of Steve Young and Jerry Rice for years, running that slant pattern. And I would just sit there and being from SoCal, obviously I'm not a Niners fan. And for years and years, I would scream at the television, how come you can't stop that? It's that easy. It's just a slant pattern, like double team that guy, something, right? But years have gone by. Everyone still runs the slant pattern. Of course, nobody makes it look as easy as Steve Young and Jerry Rice did because they're probably two of the greatest of all time. But they ran that slant pattern to McConkey and boom, like 38 yards, biggest gain of the season, turned into a touchdown. I mean, that kind of thing was that to me was perfect, right? They should have run that more. They only got Quentin Johnston. Was it just one? Yeah, he got one catch for 9 yards the whole game. They were trying to get him the ball, but like they could have run that with him. They could have run that with Palmer, even Dobbins some more, because that was working. And what I liked about it was it's quick. It doesn't require a lot of movement from Herbert. It's like 3-step drop, if that, and boom, here you go. Go make something happen after the catch. So I was a little frustrated they didn't do that more, but the slant pattern to me is I am surprised that more teams don't run it all the time because it seems like it's so easy. I know it's not. The timing of it is hard, but the fact of the matter is that it is it's very, very effective. Don't you think?
Slant is always effective in my opinion. So I'm in a complete agreement with you. I guess we got to go back to play calling.
Yeah.
Sometimes coaches get away from what's working, and I've never understood that during my time playing. If something is working, why go away from it? So once they seen that was kind of open, and I would have kept going back to the well until the well ran dry, and they just didn't do it. They just didn't do it.
Here's a couple of questions from the comments. Was
we
our
got?
O-line to blame? I'm generally asking the question like I'm confused. It felt like our ball game in the first quarter. Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I think Kenyon's on it that the play calling just got so conservative and they didn't try to throw the ball enough. And I think that's based on the fact that the Chiefs defense did not let them run the ball. And therefore, you can't get to throwing the ball enough or it just wouldn't work. But at the same time, you got to try. Here's a suggestion. I know this is kind of simple and old fashioned, but try a wildcat play with JK or Gus, just try something. Would that have worked for you? No, you don't like that?
No.
Why not?
No, because I know what you're going to do. I know you're running the ball.
Oh, yeah.
There's an opportunity for you to pass and throw with Herbert in the game, but you go wildcat. I know what you're doing. So I'm definitely going to shut that down. I'm not going to give you any room to run at all, but I want to go back to Patch for a second.
Yeah.
Herbert was hit 10 times in this game, and that's not counting the amount of pressures that went on. So the O-line has to take a good portion of this blame and how this game ended up going. Not only that, I done lost my train of thought. That's crazy.
It happens.
Lost my train of thought.
It'll come back to you like 2 minutes after we finish.
Yeah, it'll come back. We're going to move on because I definitely just went blank. That's incredible.
Is Patch likes this drags, slants, quick outs. Yeah, any of those I think would have been better. I mean, that's kind of when you go back to the last few games for the Chargers, that's what they've been doing. They haven't really stretched the field. We've talked about it multiple times. They're not stretching the field, and that's mainly because they did a little bit last week with Quentin Johnston. He had a great game. Or was that 2 weeks ago now? I can't even remember. But they're starting to stretch the field a little bit as Herbert's becoming a little bit more comfortable with these guys. But McConkey today, the longest gainer of the season at 38 yards, a little surprising that we haven't seen anything more like that. And when it was working today, from an RPO, run pass option, it didn't feel like there was a whole lot of option. It was just run, right? And the pass was working, but they didn't do it enough. So I don't know.
My train of thought came back to me.
Back. Good. So that's what I was doing. I was stalling to get it to, come back.
We're here. We got an understanding. What you talked about the offense getting conservative. When you become conservative as an offense, a defense can pin their ears back and get after you. And that's what they were able to do to our offensive line and to Herbert. We became so conservative that I'm not worried about anything else. I'm not worried about this deep ball. I'm not worried about a trick play. Now I can get after your quarterback, knowing that he's hurt, knowing that he doesn't have the ability to get out the pocket, and we're having a hard time protecting. So now I can just pin my ears back and attack. I can be an attack dog, and that's what they were.
Yeah, here's it's P. Plus passing on fourth down, fourth and 1 when we got Gus and JK is insane. It's right.
Insane. That is
I mean, you would have think
I would not understand that.
Gus Edwards could have banged out a yard. I mean, JK had a tough day, 14 for 32. The only performance that was worse than this from the backfield was Marks of the USC Trojans from yesterday. He had an average of 3.3, JK 2.3. So I gave Woody Marks credit yesterday for working his butt off. I think he earned his NIL money yesterday. I mean, so many carries, not a lot to show for it. JK Dobbins in the same boat. 32 yards at his long of 12. So not exactly what you're looking for when you have the Kansas City Chiefs on the ropes. Chargers lose it 17-10, 2-2 now, 1-1 at home. Pete Fox, Kenyon Barner. Final segment coming up. We'll get into a little bit more about where it went south for the Chargers on the third quarter, because it felt like they still had it at halftime, but in the third quarter, they started to lose their grip on it. It's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Chargers podcast feed. Today's episode of the Locked On Chargers Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Greg Roman probably could have used that today. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Check it out. You can download FanDuel.com, or you go to FanDuel.com, or you can download the app. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, 17-10, the final. Chargers fall. Travis Kelce had a day. I thought as far as where the tide turned for the Chiefs, it was Kelce, right? I mean, we've heard a lot about him not being up to Kelce standards, but today he was 7 catches, 89 yards, didn't have a touchdown, but had a heck of a day. He was there as the safety blanket for Patrick Mahomes, and Pat Mahomes, like I look at that guy and I go, he seems like he should be more mobile than he is. He runs like an old lady or an old man. He runs like I do sometimes. And he's considerably younger than I do. I'll never forget this time, Kenyon. I was playing, the Dodgers every year used to do like a media softball game. At first it was a baseball game. It was great. Then it became a softball game. And I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't like softball. I love baseball, but I don't like softball. And they'd always have Sue, who is their cameraman, does all of the photography for the Dodgers. They'd always have him there taking pictures. And then, he'd email him to you. Like, you're getting professional shots. You're playing baseball at Dodger Stadium. It is the coolest thing. One year, somebody brought a video camera and videotaped us, and I got a base hit to right field, and I ran down first base like I was 75 years old, like Babe Ruth in the 20s, that short, squatty, waddling sort of thing. I was like, damn, I look like an old man running down the field. That's what Patrick Mahomes got an
absolute visual of that right now. I seen that. I seen it.
That's what Mahomes looks like most of the time. He should be so much more mobile. But in the end, he is mobile. He gets out of the way. He gets enough of a window to find a receiver that's got double, sometimes triple coverage. And today that was Travis Kelce. He was fitting it into such tight spots, and that's what makes Patrick Mahomes so great, is that it's so hard to get him down. It's just so hard to make him ineffective. And when you look at 19 of 29, you're like, well, that's not great from Pat Mahomes. I'm like, yeah, but look at the scoreboard. That's all that matters. So I don't know what else you can do to that guy.
I didn't understand why we played a lot of zone against a great quarterback like Mahomes. You can't sit in zone. He's going to pick you apart. And we allowed him to kind of scramble a little bit and get outside the pocket. Here's what I don't understand. His entire career, he's been pump faking guys. His entire career, and they go for it, and that allows him to extend plays and get the ball downfield. I think he did it like twice towards the end of the game, where if you just run through him, I understand you're scared of his arm ability, but if you just run through him, that's going to stop that. Don't leave your feet. This isn't basketball. Let the guys behind you stay in coverage and do what they're supposed to do. Attack your responsibility. I just don't understand it. I'm not a defensive guy. So maybe I don't, I don't fully understand why I'm jumping at that pump fake, but you
it happened multiple times. Multiple times there. Crucial situation.
Same move.
Yeah, and like they talked about it. Tony Romo said, I'm sure like when we were talking to the coaching staff, they were aware that that's what he does, and they were trying to make the team aware of that. But it's one of those probably instinctual things that you just can't, get away from, that you're gonna fall for it, even though that he's pump faking right now. So yeah, it to me, I feel like part of this victory for the Chiefs was on reputation. Like the fact that they came in as the Super Bowl champs on this huge winning streak. Chargers are banged up. They know they're banged, because I'm not going to put it on like the fact that Joe Alt was out. Like, yeah, the offensive line wasn't great, opening holes for Dobbins, but it's not Joe Alt's fault. He's a rookie, right? And I think the rest of the guys were the regular dudes, the starters. So they had one guy missing there. Look, a big part of this game, we haven't talked about it yet, so we'll finish on a high note, which is an unfortunate note, is the fact that Derwin James was gone. Like, how big and how much did they miss him? Like, not having Derwin James in this game, like, he's a guy that probably doesn't jump when Patrick Mahomes does that pump fake. I mean, that it's a different ball game with Derwin James is playing.
That's this team's North Star. And without this North Star, they don't have a sense of direction. They don't have an identity without Derwin out there. And to your point, I don't think he jumps. He's a heat-seeking missile. He's coming downhill and he's trying to make you pay. So not only him, not having Bosa as well. Those two guys being out and not playing, that limits you. The identity of your defense completely shifts and changes. You aren't the same defense. But not having him is a huge loss at any point in time because he's such a playmaker. Whether it's making big hits, whether it's getting interceptions, putting guys in position. Anytime you're missing a player like that is detrimental to your team.
Yeah, obviously, Bosa being out is something they missed as well. But I thought Khalil Mack did a good job. I thought they got after the quarterback.
He had a great game.
Yeah, they had 3 sacks in the first half. I mean, that was fantastic. So that was a surprise. And again, I don't want to call this game a tale of two halves, but it did feel like, hey, we're at the half we're leading 10-7 against the Chiefs. Maybe we got a shot here. So, I mean, hopefully they'll get Derwin James back.
To be in that position? Do you think they were surprised to be in that position?
I would say no. I mean, you tell me. You're the professional. You guys come into these games expecting to win every time. Right. That's what I'm told, and that's the mentality that you have to be a professional athlete. So I feel like no. I feel like, hey, we got just as good a shot now as we did without Derwin James. I think if Justin Herbert is out and they're up 10-7, then it's a different vibe. But with Herbert there, he's their leader. They feel like, yeah, we can win this game, especially leading at halftime. So, yeah, I don't know that they were terribly surprised, but I'm sure, again, human nature, you got to jump when Patrick Mahomes pump fakes you. In the back of their head, they're like, well, we know the Chiefs wear you down. We know about this winning streak. We know that we haven't beaten them at home in 10 years. I'm sorry, 5 years, 10 games. It's, that's got to be in the back of their head. And hard to ignore that reality. Final thing, I want to get your comment on the Derwin James suspension. What were your thoughts on that call? Did you think it was whatever they called targeting?
I don't. But when you have a reputation, it's like in the legal system. When a criminal gets caught and he has a prior criminal record, his priors come into effect on that sentence. And that's what this is. Derwin he's a hitter. He's a big hitter. Yep. And having consecutive penalties and being fined, that's what it leads to. I didn't agree with it then. I don't agree with it now. And I don't think that's a call that you make. That's again, I can say refs are terrible. They are. Refs are terrible. But my high school coach used to always say, you don't leave the game in the refs' hands. If you don't want a judgment call, it's gonna go against you every single time. So don't put it in the refs' hands.
Yeah, they said your continued disregard for the rules. That's the way they described it in the letter that they sent to him. So it's unfortunate. Yeah, but they definitely missed him today. I think it's a different game if he's playing, and obviously, hopefully, they get Bosa back sooner before or later. The defense, I thought, did a pretty good job, right, to hold the Chiefs down and be in this game. The defense did their job. You can't fault them on this loss. The fact is that the Chargers just couldn't find any rhythm in the second half on offense. Trying to run the ball into a brick wall was just not working for them. So hopefully Greg Roman spends an extra few hours this weekend along with Harbaugh watching the tape. I'm sure they will. How many times do you guys watch tape during the week on the prior game?
So you'll watch this game either Monday or Tuesday. You'll come in, watch the full game, go through it with your position coach. You'll watch a couple of plays as a team, as a unit. Then you'll break into offense, defense. Then you'll separate in position group. But you'll watch it Monday or Tuesday. and you may take a look back for reference maybe a couple of times throughout the week. But after Monday or Tuesday, you're moving on.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Roman, will watch it on his tablet an extra time to kind of go, I can't do that. Can't do that again.
You know,
gotta be better. What?
You know, we can't go 4 for 13 on third down, and nor can we go 9 for 16 defensively on third down. That's what we can't do.
One other thing I put down, we forgot to get to, was in the first half, the Chargers were holding the Chiefs on third down, right? Mm-hmm. They had them at 1 point, 1 of 3 right at the end of the first, and then it was 3 of 7. Then you look to the right of that number, Chargers are no better, right? They were no better on third down. They did have way more first downs because the Chiefs only had 1 in the first quarter. Chargers had 6, right? But again, this is all about the first quarter, and then everything changed. But they did a good job holding the Chiefs. Again, the defense didn't do a whole lot wrong. They did their job. The offense just couldn't take advantage. That's why I keep saying
to support them. We didn't support
missed
the
opportunities. Missed opportunities. You were sitting next to the girl at the bar. She bought you a drink. You bought her. You guys were having some laughs, and then she gets up and leaves. Yeah, she just leaves. You're like, wait,
you don't say a word.
Wait, I didn't get your number. Wait, come back. Damn it, we were sitting for like an hour. We were having fun. We were laughing. Everything was good. And now you're gone. What? So it was like just missed opportunity. Right. So next week it's the Broncos, and hopefully things get better, get healthy, get better, get back on track. All right. He's Kenyon Barner. I'm Pete Fox. Kenyon, always a pleasure. We'll catch you next Sunday. It's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your likes and your subscriptions. Hey, we got 1 new subscriber today. Just mentioned that, so that's cool. We will talk next Sunday. Chargers and Broncos. That one's in Denver at 1:05. So we'll catch you guys right after here on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.